days of competitive gaming, socialization, seminars, and many more, the maiden edition of Accra Esports Week came to an end at the Accra Mall Food Court. The Accra Esports Week was brought to you by Pop Out and Esports Academy in partnership with Esports Association of Ghana, Joy Prime, and My Joy Online. The event saw top esports athletes in Ghana compete on the final stages in various video games such as FIFA 23, eFootball, NBA 2K23, and Frozen, with over 20,000 Ghana cedis in pot prizes.
Hi, welcome to the VGA Esports Show, and it's amazing how we've all gathered here today for the Accra Esports Week. Since Monday, we've been bringing you back-to-back esports action. It's been non-stop from every genre of gaming you can think of, and I'll be speaking to a few people to get their views on what the week has been like. I've got my first person here, Vespa.
Hi.
How has the week been?
Wow, it's been terrific. It's been exciting. It's been something I haven't witnessed yet. I may want to call it unprecedented. Of course, it's the biggest ever esports experience in Africa, comprising over 12 games. In fact, it's been exhilarating, and I really had fun with this.
What are you expecting from a final? Do you expect it to be as good as it was, or even better?
Now, this final is going to be crunch, trust me. I mean, particularly with the FIFA, we are going to be playing from the quarter-final stages, and trust me, all those final 8 players, they are tough. They are among Ghana's best, Ghana's favorites. There's the big ups in there, there's Prince Jonas in there, there's Sule Habib. The only person missing out is the only Wonder Kid, but it looks like right now he wants to retire into, some legendary status, so we'll excuse him. But of course, with NBA, we have 2 of the best in the country. We have DT coming up against Terry, and of course the sim racing super races right there. So in fact, we are poised for a lot of action today. I'm just reserved, waiting to see how the energy will rise up very soon when we kickstart.
Hello, and welcome to the show. I mean, you just saw what we did for the Accra Esports Week. I mean, it was one of the biggest esports activity beginning of the year, and we did it, and we brought it to a close. But we are not close yet, because we still have our virtual hangouts coming up. We intentionally wanted to have it end it at the end of January, but we are still in February, and we still having to talk to a lot of people. It is all because we want the best information, everything best for Ghana, not only for Ghana but Africa. And today I have a wonderful personality that is coming onto the show. She is amazing. I mean, the word amazing is just even a small speed. But I mean, before I bring her on, right, we are really ready to have an hangout with her. She is like super exciting, super interesting. My days with her at Bali was amazing. Intelligent. I mean, for you to have a lady leading an esports organization in Canada, damn, she is that good. All right, so anybody, let's put a drum roll. Welcome the one and only Malisa Vance. Hello, Malisa. Welcome to Accra Esports Show. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, great. We are super excited to have you, and to have a great conversation with you as well. My first question will be, how was Bali for you?
It was absolutely incredible. I think the event itself spoke to the growth of the industry as a whole. We saw incredible talent, but also just the scope and scale of the event was really inspiring.
Amazing.
But for me personally, it was the opportunity to connect with so many people internationally. These are folks that I've had the pleasure of connecting with via text and WhatsApp chats and all that kind of stuff, but to actually meet people in person and feel their energy in that real space was unmatched. It was incredible.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. I had a wonderful time, great experience also, the connection, the international connection, and also even for the gamers, the players, the ability to connect with people that they've been watching their YouTube videos, and now they can see them physically, talk to them, share with them their experiences was even amazing for my players. And they have a lot of fun talking to you. And when I told them that today you are coming on the show, they were like, wow. So just to go into our conversation even further, as I said before, normally when I have this kind of conversation, I just want it to be natural and flow, not bothered with a lot of questions, but have that experience, share that moment, share what connect us, that is the video games, right? And how we've now turned it to become a very tool for developing young ones, and not only that, giving them better livelihood. And for me, that is very key. Now let's talk about you. How was your childhood like with video games?
I've played games my whole life, so that was never something that was new to me later on. I'm very old, so I remember playing. I remember playing like Donkey Kong Country on the SNES. That was the first game that I had played to completion, and I remember growing up. I didn't actually have a console of my own at home. I would go to my friends' houses to play on their consoles, and with Donkey Kong Country in particular, I remember I was on the battleship and I was fighting with King K. Rool, and I was so close, and my parents called me home for dinner, and I didn't come. And I got in so much trouble. I came home like 2 hours late, and my friends were like, "Aren't you supposed to be home right now?" But that was definitely a big moment for me where I really saw how you can accomplish a lot and you can develop intense amounts of resiliency through something like a video game. And I think that's something that is often overlooked, is the skill development that transfers into other aspects of your life when you allow yourself to experience it and develop it through play.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, that was the first question I wanted to ask you, but what inspired you to pursue a career in video game and esports industry?
Honestly, I kind of fell into it by accident almost.
Whoa,
I mean,
whoa,
there was
let's go back. Let's go back. I like the accident part. I like the, most people fall into this esports space by accident. So let's start. Honestly,
so yeah,
go ahead.
it was a little bit intentional and a little bit by accident. And definitely where I currently am is not something I ever would have imagined for myself. But now that I'm here, I can't imagine being anywhere else. This is, I feel like I have found my passion and where I'm meant to be and the work that I'm meant to be doing. And so I'm glad that I'm here. But I started out actually with a degree in opera. Believe it or not, I'm a singer, and I had started for several years. I was working full-time professionally, touring, doing musical theater, actually. But then I decided, just with a few life choices that came my way, I actually ended up finding myself in education. And I was a teacher in a classroom, and I know that as an educator, our relationships with students are really what establish a really healthy and strong learning environment. And so I really wanted to find ways to connect with my students that met them where they were. And one of the things that I noticed, like, there were always the after school sports and different clubs that existed. But for my students, there wasn't anything being offered for esports. And I knew that video games are something that isn't for some of our students, all of our kids are gaining, all of them. And that was something that I was passionate about and I loved to do. And so I asked my principal at the time if I could start an esports team, and they had no idea what that was or what that meant, but said if you can find the gear, go for it. And so back in 2016, I started a program for middle school students, so grades 6 to 8. To compete in, we were playing primarily Super Smash Bros. At the time, and I was working with them on developing their skills. So it wasn't just like a drop-in club. I was coaching them as a team, and so they were getting ready for competitions and competing in LAN tournaments against high school students and university age students. And they were coming out of these competitions winning because we were going into these competitions with strategy, where they knew ahead of time that there was no way they were going to be able to compete based on technical skill, because they just didn't have the same amount of hours in the game as these older students. But by being strategic and learning how to play defensively and capitalize on mistakes, they were able to win. And that launched, from there, it launched into a provincial school sports, esports association that I was able to help advocate for esports in our provincial curriculum, to develop curriculum for it, and really flesh out lots of opportunities for our students to compete. And that work turned into a national program, because we're not limited geographically like traditional sports. And so that turned into a national program. And then that program, again, all an esports for schools program, caught the attention of our post-secondary, our colleges and universities, as well as industry. And independently, folks from across the country started coming to me and saying, hey, we really like what you're doing in this space. Can we build on it? And so what started as this small organization for middle school students to feel like they had a place to belong and where they felt valued for their interests and their passions became a national organization that now has a pipeline from kindergarten to grade 12 to high school or to university and college, right up into career development through university programs and the opportunity to play at competitive levels.
Amazing. This really talks. If I could get the keywords that you've just mentioned, one, being strategic. I mean, you send these players, even though they didn't have that enough time, but they were very strategic to accomplish that they won. And because they won, they were able to have all the opportunities available to them. Amazing. This is great. I mean, let me move on to my second question. Can you share your experience in building and leading an successful esports team, just like Esports Canada?
Yeah.
Let me put the question this way, rather. No. How did Esports Canada come about? You just spoken a bit about how you moved from the school state, but how did the esports name Canada all came about? You just went to the policymakers and say, hey, we want to have an Esports Canada, and they said, go ahead.
So it was when I had originally registered Esport Canada and trademarked it and registered as a not-for-profit nationally. It was still just a school-based organization. It really was just that. And so I was working with educators from across the country who had a shared vision and were willing to put in the work to get this thing off the ground. And then it was actually quite recently that we've expanded into all these different aspects and avenues, where as we saw the need and the demand for a more structured national body emerge based on demand from the folks in our country, that we realized we needed to bring in experience to help build out that organization, our organization, in strategic ways. Because something that I've noticed in Canada, at least, is that there's lots of gaming happening, and there are tons of pockets of gaming communities across the country, but we're quite fragmented, and that lack of unity really stifles our growth because we're not able to pool our resources and advocate with a stronger, larger voice. Once we actually bring everyone together and policymakers and government start to realize that this isn't a small portion or segment of our population, this is a very large, sweeping reach across our nation that hits all different age categories, socioeconomic situations, genders, all kinds of identities. This is everyone. Then all of a sudden, we have a lot more power and ability to advocate for what we need to grow the industry in our country. And so, as we've been building out our team to reflect this growth and to reflect what our organization has become, it's been less about finding the best of the best of the best and more about finding folks who represent diverse perspectives and have a growth mindset and are willing to learn and put in the work and have that shared vision so that we can work collaboratively towards that goal.
Amazing. I mean, you being a woman and championing esports, um, and also being a teacher, what are the benefits for esports in school? I mean, most times when I go to schools and talk about esports and video games, they just look at the video games entertainment aspect for children and go like, hey, it will spoil the children. It has no educational value, right? But you are a teacher, and you were able to champion esports in school. My question is, because at the end of the day, I want a teacher watching this particular episode to understand the benefit of esports in schools. Can you share with us some of the benefit that your school derived from esports?
Of course. Honestly, this is a particular topic that I could go on and on and on about. So please
go on and on and on.
At any point. But it's kind of interesting because when I even reflect back on what my initial goals were in introducing esports in a school setting, it was about relationships, and it was about connecting with my students and helping them to feel valued in the school. Because while some students are going to be involved in sports or band or choir or other kinds of after school activities, there is a segment of our school population that go home and they play video games alone. And so this was something that I was introducing as an opportunity for them to have a physical community, to feel connection and belonging at school. But what I realized from the experience was that it was actually so much more. There's one student in particular who really brought this into focus for me, where as we were building our strategies, as we were developing different techniques and the more technical coaching aspects of the team, I gave them an assignment where instead of just hopping around between characters in Smash Bros, I said, you need to pick two mains that you really want to focus your efforts on and really develop your understanding of the ins and outs of those characters. And I want you to go home, spend some time, think about it, and put together what a document that kind of helps you frame what this character does, what their skill sets are, what their moves are, who they pair well against. And this is all an after school, totally optional activity. So I had no expectation of anyone coming back with anything. And I had this student in grade 6 who came back the next day with a 6-page document that he had created himself, where he went into the lore of the character. He went into all the move sets. He talked about even like the upcoming patch and what that
Wow.
patch was going to do to his character, which stages were going to be most optimal, and which characters are the best or strongest to counterpick against. And the level of detail he went into unlocked something for me, where I realized that this student was doing academic work. He was exhibiting research skills, critical thinking, analysis, writing skills, because he laid it all out in a beautiful document. And I realized that this was not about providing video game opportunities in schools. This was taking our gamers and making them learners, as opposed to the other way around. It's starting with their passion and then drawing all those educational skills out of the opportunity and the experience. And so a lot of the work that I do with students in schools right now and with developing teacher capacity is around unlocking all of those skill sets that are so crucial to our students' success in all kinds of aspects. So they're going to be developing their soft skills, their communication, their collaboration, even things like time management are going to be so important for their success in any possible career, and even academically with getting their assignments completed on time, where now there's a reason that they need to do this. But it also gives them the opportunity to develop a lot of technical skills and something that I often refer to as digital literacy. It's their ability to navigate lots of different kinds of digital platforms with little to no direct instruction, because the kinds of technology that they're going to be interfacing with when they actually enter the workforce are going to be vastly different than the ones that we have right now. And so I need them to have the skill to be adaptable and to learn independently and master those things independently, which is what esports allows us to do. It gives them that exposure that allows them to develop those skills. And something that I'm not sure if it's specific to Canada and our situation, but we have a lot of folks that are living in rural and northern and remote communities that if they want to have a higher paying job, they have to leave their home community and go to a bigger city or a bigger urban center to get a job that lets them make more money, thereby removing them from contributing economically to the community they used to belong to.
Yeah.
What we're doing with esports and education is that we're giving them transferable skills that allow them to work remotely from where they are and get a higher paying job from where they are, so they can continue to contribute to their local economy, to their local community, without having to move to an urban center to do that. And so that also puts the pressure on our government to then provide appropriate infrastructure to give them those opportunities.
Amazing. This is really gold nuggets here. The fact that I've not thought about this, that look, video games offer opportunity to students or talents in local communities, where they being in that community, being skillful and being able to play within that community brings back kind of develop their local economy, because then whatever money or whatever resource, whatever financial they being a source of knowledge within the esports space is bringing returns right back to them. And I can see this even in our local grassroots tournament, whereby we go to rural places to have tournament there, and we discover a talent there. All of a sudden the talent becomes well known. They ask, where is it coming from? Oh, it's coming from this community. Wow, we didn't think that people are that good. All of a sudden that community becomes a center of attraction, and that also become counted as being an esports hotspot. And now a lot of the teams try to look for talent from that neighborhood, right? Because they know, okay, if this guy is good, in that community, that means that there are a lot more talented people located in that community. So this local economy with esports really works. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Before
I
we
think
go,
that,
go
yeah.
on, go on.
Okay, I was just going to say the other thing that I always like to consider when we're looking at esports in schools that it is that it's not always necessarily going to be strictly beneficial to academic and skill development and future economic gains. It's also looking at the student holistically and
Mm-hmm.
looking at how they experience life. And one of the things that really stands out to me is that there was a study that came out a few years ago that showed that Gen Z is reporting just as many real life experiences in digital spaces as they are in physical spaces. And so there's been a paradigm shift in terms of how we experience life that older generations are having a hard time really coming to terms with and understanding. They're still grappling with that reality that real things, real life is being experienced in digital spaces and not just in physical spaces. And so we need to reshape the way and reframe the way that we look at those kinds of situations, and knowing that our students are going to have just as many experiences in digital spaces as they are in physical ones. We need to take that responsibility very seriously as educators to give them the skills to be successful, because oftentimes, especially when you look at skill development in younger students, it can be very situational.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can have your classroom routine down pat and they know how to behave and they know what the expectations are in the classroom, but then you take them to the playground and it's like everything breaks loose, and they forget how to use those expectations of behavior in that new space. And so we need to also be intentional with how we are training our students to interact in digital spaces, so that they recognize that the same kindness and compassion and self-regulation that they're developing in physical interactions also translates, or has to translate, into digital spaces as well. And that they need to be able to find that place where they can create positive and inclusive environments online, and how to recognize when they're not. I think that one of the really important things we do with bringing esports into schools is that we are providing them a safe place to fail. And
Uh-huh.
I think that that is something that is often undervalued. We know that they're going to make mistakes. We know that they're going to rage quit. We know that they're going to say something inappropriate. But what better place to do that than in a school where we can go, okay, let's take a look at this. Let's take a step back. Why did you react the way that you did? And how can we change this for next time? It gives them the opportunity to change the way the conversation ends, rather than continuing to contribute to some negative behaviors online.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Solid points there. I mean, let's talk about um, girls or women in gaming, diversity and inclusion, right? And my question is, how important is diversity and inclusion in gaming and esports? And what steps are you, or would you like to take, or what steps are you taking to promote it?
I think, regardless of whether it's esports or any other anything really, inclusion and diversity are so crucial to success because it invites perspective. It's actually very short sighted to have only one representation in any organization, because it limits your scope and it leaves you with so many blind spots. There's so many things that are left unconsidered and unrepresented, and really it it shortens the amount of, or reduces the amount of opportunities that you can really capitalize on. Because as soon as we bring in more perspectives, more diversity, whether that is gender or ethnicity or anything else, all of a sudden now you have someone who sees things from a different perspective than you do, which means that you're closing the gap in terms of your ability to connect and maximize potential. And so there's a lot of beauty in that, but it also, from an economic standpoint, just makes a lot of sense because you're removing those gaps and blind spots from your perspective.
For me, I think that, I mean, women in esports should be strongly encouraged, because I think sometimes the woman brings the beauty to the esports environment. So, for instance,
Yeah.
you know, when we do an esports tournament, and when we say, "Oh, there's a girls' version going to be there," the boys come to the place because they know they will find girls there. You know, like they bring the fire to the place. No, yeah, it's not gonna be like boys all along, but so
Yeah.
diversity and inclusive. Yes, we should bring the girls, but on the flip side, they bring the beauty and the harmony and the excitement, and it makes everything very beautiful as it is. I mean, imagine going to a place and they are all guys. There's no excitement. There's no, there's no happiness. There is nothing to really ginger the boys to really be excited. But girls bring that. I mean, they bring a lot more than just happiness. I think they bring uniqueness. They bring the variety. They bring all the good things that we want to see in the space. My next question to you: what is your opinion about the use of performance enhanced drugs, PED, in esports, and how do we ensure fair play?
Well, it's an interesting concept that honestly hasn't really been explored as much as it probably should have at this point. And I think, just like any of the other aspects, I think it does still come back to education, that there are a lot of misconceptions in terms of weighing the pros and cons of PEDs and looking at the longevity of our players and their performance, and weighing the risks. Because when you actually look at it in terms of creating an environment and an ecosystem that is seen with credibility on a global scale, we need to take this conversation very seriously, because when we look at the impact it has had on traditional athletics, the instant that that playing field becomes uneven because of performance enhancing drugs, it loses credibility. And I think that at this stage of development for esports, I feel that that could be very damaging to the reputation of the industry and the ecosystem as a whole. And while there may be some short-lived benefits that some individuals might see from the use, I think that the overall impact of it on the individual person, but also the industry as a whole, it's quite negative when in contrast to the benefits that it hopes to provide. Because as we get deeper into this, we're realizing the positive impacts of healthy living on our esports athletes. We're seeing how cardiovascular activity and conditioning really enhances their ability to make quick decisions and respond very quickly in various situations. So I think that this is one that needs a lot more care and consideration than it's currently being given.
Amazing. I mean, I believe so too. That it's what I like, the fact that it's not so predominant within our industry, because I personally think that video games, as much as it's mind, is cognitive, it's supposed to be so natural, right? Without any form of medicine or any form of performance enhancement drug. Then as much as it is so natural, it is that perfect. right? That we are on equal
Yeah.
level. Nobody's taking anything to enhance his performance. We are all on that same strain,
But
and that makes it beautiful.
But I would also say that this starts a lot earlier than some may even recognize in terms of use of performance enhancing, maybe not drugs necessarily, but looking at, well, I mean, in a way, it still is the overuse of caffeine and stimulants
Hmm.
in the industry, including young kids. And again, bringing it back to that education space is having those conversations with our students around what does caffeine actually do to our bodies? How long does it stay in our system? What impact does excessive use of caffeine have on our cardiovascular system? Because a lot of times they don't actually consider, especially when I see it being overused in high school and junior high age students, they don't understand the impact because caffeine is so readily available. You can get it anywhere. And so they don't think of it in terms of what kind of negative impact it can have on them. And that's just that first conversation that we can have with them about what does a healthy gaming lifestyle look like and how can I be at my best performance without using a supplement like that. And that a lot of it has to do with intentionality and having
Hmm.
a balanced healthy lifestyle as opposed to the reliance on some external substance.
Amazing. I mean, this will lead me to my next question to you. How do you balance the need of a player's health and well-being with the demands of the industry?
And that's challenging because right now, when we look at the industry from the perspective of streamers and content creators, it's the demand for more, demand for constant production, demand for longer streams, more streams, more content all the time. And in order to stay ahead and to stay on top of the industry's demand, there is a lot of pressure on them to put out so much more than is actually feasible for any person. And so I think that we need to start having serious conversations around what our expectations are of the industry and what kinds of supports we're going to have in place for our content creators so that we don't continue to burn through creators. Because what we're starting to see now is that we are using these creators, these gamers, these players for everything that they have until they burn out and have nothing left. And then they
Hmm.
leave and we move on to the next big thing. And I think that that mentality needs to shift if we want to see any sort of sustainability in the industry itself. And not to continue going back to education, but it really does. It comes back to education again, where we need to have these conversations earlier. We need to have them as early as possible. And we need to get families involved in those conversations so they understand the industry and what it is like so that we can all work together to change what that expectation is moving forward. Because a lot of times now there's a disconnect between what the students and the players are consuming and what the adults in their lives understand and see. And so we need to start inviting those conversations to happen so we can start looking at how do we, like, especially if you're looking at player development, how do we actually get better at this? Because going and playing all night and then grinding through your school day and then going and playing all night again
Hmm.
does not make you efficient at skill development in your game. It doesn't help you with your academic success. It puts a strain on all of your relationships. That is not healthy in terms of overall development. And so we really need to look at how do we prioritize self-care and how do we get the industry to start to model this for our students? Because it needs to be a little bit of both. We need to do what we can with our students and show them what healthy living looks like, but we also need to see that reflected in what is seen as successful within the industry.
Great, great. Melissa, you're giving us some great info here. But my next question, actually, I mean, it just came to me. It's not part of the questions that I have on my sheet. Um, the question is, how would you advise a parent that has a gamer kid and the kid is addicted to playing video games?
Um, Addiction is hard. It really is, and it's not a term that we want to just throw around. So we need to look at it, what level of issue we are looking at, and if it is actually getting into the area of a true addiction in terms of defining addiction, then you need to look at getting psychological support. That's not something that any parent or teacher is really in a position to do alone. You need to have professional support. If it's where you have a very passionate gamer who has a borderline obsession and is perhaps spending more time than they should be on a game or on a device, then I think providing them with role models in terms, I often draw their attention to the professional gaming houses and looking at how they do physical conditioning, how they have coaching, how they have drills, how they take shifts when they're doing their streaming and connecting with their audience, and really looking for those kinds of connections to what is seen at the professional level. And I think that that's a really great place to start. But also then just doing some testing with them. It's never about removing the games entirely, because telling a kid who is absolutely obsessed with something that they can't have the thing that they love and the thing that they're passionate about will never have a positive ending. So it's about teaching them and helping them to develop the skills to regulate themselves and understand when is an appropriate time, how to do it, how to engage with it. We see that even with students that develop an obsession with something as simple as a particular TV show.
Hmm.
And they just can't get enough of that TV show. We do the same thing there, where it's not about taking away that show, it's about how do we build it into their days with intention, and then helping them develop the skills to self regulate.
Amazing. But it, we being intentional about how our kids play around with video games. I mean, I think the parents should be a little bit supportive. And then also, for me, I think one of the ways I kill addiction with in gamers is to um, bring them out to come and meet other fellow gamers, right? And when they meet and talk, they share timelines. Then those timelines afford them the opportunity to play together, to hang out together, and they care for themselves. And normally, if anybody talks to me about addiction, most of the time they go like, these guys become antisocial. So the first
Mm.
thing is I try to break the antisocial, whereby I bring them into a team, find them a team they can belong to, and I find them a team manager they can respond to, and then play with other people, you know. And
Mhm.
with time, they know that they even though they have responsibility, practice time, and all that, you find out that it by them having social life outside the gaming, they also are the gaming time is a bit reduced. They only game when, yeah, even within the game they are gaming with other people, or they are gaming with the
Mhm.
teammates, so they are socializing, talking on the headset, and communicate within in game, so they're still bonded. But if he is alone and he's playing alone and he's almost all the time on his gadget alone, that is one thing that I think that you said that we
Yeah,
should be intentional about. That I think
absolutely.
parents need to also be a little bit concerned about their kids and be there, be
Of
supportive.
course.
Yeah, be supportive. Okay, Melissa. I mean, we've almost walked through about half a time. I have some interesting questions to ask you, but right now, I just want us to
Okay.
go for a quick break. When we come back, I'll ask you the most funny questions about.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is going to be the most. I mean, we always want to have some kind of laughter, have some kind of joke, and we have some small funny questions to ask you. So let's go for a
Love it.
quick break. When you come back, we're still here with Malisa Banks, who is the chair and also the founder of Esports Canada. My name is Chrissy Hayford. We'll be right back.
Six good days of competitive gaming, socialization, seminars, and many more. The maiden edition of Accra Esports Week came to an end at the Accra Mall Food Court. The Accra Esports Week was brought to you by Pop Out and Esports Academy in partnership with Esports Association of Ghana, Joy Prime, and My Joy Online. The event saw top esports athletes in Ghana compete on the final stages in various video games such as FIFA 23, eFootball, NBA 2K23, and Frozen, with over 20,000 Ghana cedis in pot prizes.
Hi, welcome to the VGA Esports Show, and it's amazing how we've all gathered here today for the Accra Esports Week. Since Monday, we've been bringing you back-to-back esports action. It's been non-stop from every genre of gaming you can think of, and I'll be speaking to a few people to get their views on what the week has been like. I've got my first person here, Vespa.
Hi.
How has the week been?
Wow, it's been terrific. It's been exciting. It's been something I haven't witnessed yet. I may want to call it unprecedented. Of course, it's the biggest ever esports experience in Africa, comprising over 12 games. In fact, it's been exhilarating, and I really had fun with this.
What are you expecting from a final? Do you expect it to be as good as it was, or even better?
Now, this final is going to be crunch, trust me. I mean, particularly with the FIFA, we are going to be playing from the quarter-final stages, and trust me, all those final 8 players, they are tough. They are among Ghana's best, Ghana's favorites. There's the big ups in there, there's Prince Jonas in there, there's Sule Habib. The only person missing out is the only Wonder Kid, but it looks like right now he wants to retire into, some legendary status, so we'll excuse him. But of course, with NBA, we have 2 of the best in the country. We have DT coming up against Terry, and of course the sim racing super races right there. So in fact, we are poised for a lot of action today. I'm just reserved, waiting to see how the energy will rise up very soon when we kickstart.
All right, and welcome back. I'm still here with the one of the top women in esports. She is Malisa Banks, chair and president, or chair founder, not co-founder, founder of Esports Canada. And she has been amazing in giving us some wonderful information about esports. All the questions that I'm throwing out to her, she's like that. Okay, Malisa, welcome back.
You're far
All
too
right.
kind.
All right, great. So, my first funny question is, if you ever wanted to be in a video game, what game will it be and what character?
Oh man. Okay. It's actually easy. I don't have to overthink this one. League of Legends. Easy. League of Legends. I would love to be in League of Legends, and there are so many characters that I could play, but I think the one that probably I identify the most with is Ziggs, because I'm very chaotic and I just kind of like scatter bombs all over the place.
Wow, amazing. Okay, I mean, the what's your favorite retro game?
Retro game. You know what? I have to say, I always feel a great level of satisfaction anytime I play Super Mario Brothers. But my favorite is always Zelda. I could play that game over and over in any possible version of it. I love it. I think Ocarina of Time is still my favorite, but I love that entire game series.
Any game that you've played and you go like after the first chapter or first level, no, this game is not for me.
Banjo Kazooie. It's awful.
Oh my!
We're talking retro games. I was like, nope, this one's not for me.
I thought you were going to say like FIFA.
Oh, no, you know what? I actually really liked playing FIFA. Back in the day, I played a lot of FIFA. Absolutely.
Whoa. Yeah, you think the girls really like, certain games like Candy Crush and stuff like that. But anyway, but let me tell
Oh,
you,
no, no, no. Those are boring.
yeah, what's the most favorite or most popular game in Canada?
I would say right now it would probably be either Call of Duty or Valorant. Those are really, really hot titles for us. Counter-Strike is always up there as well. Um, League of Legends and Rocket League would also make the top five for sure.
And this works within the school system, or this is like top
Oh, no,
tier
okay.
one games? The
Like I'm just talking about overall general popularity and where we see the most attention in terms of the number of tournaments, the number of participants. Call of Duty, Valorant, Counter Strike, League of Legends, and Rocket League would definitely make the top five. In schools, in particular, Rocket League is really, really big with the younger students. I think
Okay.
that in the next 5 years, depending on how they develop the pro scene, I think that there could be a really big surgence, at least in North America, for Rocket League. And Valorant is massively on the rise. So the way we structure it in education in Canada is that we respect all of the age ratings for the games. So Valorant is rated 13 plus, so our high school students can access that game.
Okay, great, great. You know, esports is a roller coaster space to be in. It is massively
Mm-hmm.
like almost every there's a new game, almost every time there's a new technology that is coming up. How do you, how do you keep up with all this, keep updated with the latest development in gaming and esports technology and the infrastructure?
People are always going to be a fabulous way to stay on top of things. So, folks like yourself and all of our international
Ah.
community is a really, really great way to stay on top of things. I also pay a lot of attention to some of the publications that come out. So, like Esports Insider has always been very salient in terms of the points that they are able to get across. And I also really enjoy the Business Feed Sports podcast with Paul Doalibi. That one's excellent. I think that there are a lot of really interesting insights that come out of that one as well. And then also just looking at general market trends. You can usually tell pretty quickly when a new game comes out. Generally, what the success is going to be in terms of their ability to engage, but it's the retention piece that some games are still struggling with. They'll get a really hot release. I have an example in mind. I won't say it out loud because I don't want anybody to get mad. But they had huge numbers when they released the game, and it looked like it was going to be really great. But then it fell flat. The community didn't stay engaged. They came in, they tried it, and then they left. And I think that it's something that makes certain games, particularly I'm drawn to the games that Riot has been producing with League of Legends and Valorant, Wild Rift. Something that I think that has been a bit of a secret sauce for them is really investing into the lore of the worlds that they've created. So people are not just invested in terms of great gameplay. They love the characters. They love the worlds. They love the stories. The amount of attention and detail they've put into the art and fleshing out these worlds and the music. It's an experience. It's not just a game. It's an entire experience that you can really lose yourself in. And I think that for in terms of longevity of a game, really is a standout factor.
Amazing. I mean, isn't it like when a product comes out and the game publishers or developers are more concerned about the community, and they get feedback from the community and they utilize those feedback. And if you look at these older games that are still around, like the CSGO, League of Legends, it's continuously been engaging with the community to see and improving it. So these games consistently are improving and coming out as better games because the community engagement with the game is very strong. Any game, I say it almost all the time, that if you're not about the community, I'm telling you, your product will fall flat, because then there's no way people are going to play the game continually if the producer is not also bringing back some kind of returns of what the community is saying, right? So
Well,
I agree
and
with you.
yeah, and tying into that observation as well is, how do you build that community? How do you
Hmm.
create that community? Because when you look at a game like Call of Duty, it has a community that's been around for decades. So
Yep.
they already have that space. So the challenge for new games coming in is, how do we create a community that folks will want to buy into? How do we create a community that they want to stay involved with? And that's where I think that immersive experience, where you see how Riot has developed that experience for their games, and even the crossover of characters between titles really helps to um, capture an audience and then foster a community.
Amazing. Amazing. The big question that most people want to hear about: what has been your challenges? Before even I go, let me start recording this. I said, what has been your challenges being a woman and leading an esports?
Um, I think I like to look for opportunities rather than focus on deficits. And while I could definitely sit here and talk about some of the comments that I've had to listen to, some of the times that I have been um, either underrated or overlooked because of my perceived lack of experience, that someone like me, maybe I ended up in this space, but maybe I don't actually play games. Maybe I don't belong in this space. Maybe I'm not that community member. Um, I could focus on that, but instead I choose to turn those into opportunities. And I choose to find that as um, an opportunity to look for ways to promote and support and advocate for my community and for my country and for the people that have allowed me to represent them in different spaces, where rather than seeing it as being overlooked, I can use it as an opportunity to show them what I can actually do, and that I do know my stuff, and that um, I belong here, and I will fight my hardest for the people that I represent.
Amazing. Do you think that being a woman in within this space um, has propelled you in any way? Like, felt like, yes, I am a woman, but I know my stuff. And being a strong woman has propelled you in any way. I mean, because I understand that some girls are watching and they will want to find out what kind of mindset do you have within this space.
I don't feel that I've gotten any additional opportunities because of my gender. If anything, I think that I have still been overlooked a lot of times and not taken seriously. But I also know that I have the unique position and opportunity to support and be a visible presence for folks who are underrepresented in the space. And I know that that's bigger than me. And I know that even um, still being a white woman does not give the same voice to other folks that are still underrepresented in this space. But it's a step in the right direction. And I hope that by being here and smashing through as many glass ceilings as I can will provide more opportunities for the next generation and those to come next. I want to try and blaze those trails for them so that the path can be so much wider for more to follow.
Amazing, 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 amazing. You're so amazing. I mean, like every, everything that you said is right on point and encouraging women to really smash through the roof and come out and be themselves. You know, I mean, it's wonderful. Let me move on to some few questions, then we run it up. Um, One of the biggest questions that is has always been on my mind. Can you share your views on the role of government in regulating and supporting the growth of esports, especially in Canada?
I think that our growth is dependent on the credibility of government recognition and the support of the community. I find that it isn't enough to simply have government recognize it and put someone in place who doesn't understand the industry. It is much more important and much more crucial to the success of esports within my country for government to recognize and support esports, but also ensure that the folks who understand the industry are in the positions to help guide decision making. And I think that community needs to be involved in that. And I think that that's something that we are working very hard to accomplish. There are lots of communicate or a lot of conversations that still need to happen. But we're very focused on collaboration and communication and bringing people together. I feel from the conversations that I've had within my own country, but also abroad with the international community, that Canada is seen a little bit as a sleeping giant right now, that we have a lot of potential and everybody's just kind of waiting to see what we do with it. And so I think that these next few years are going to be absolutely critical to Canada establishing themselves within the industry, and where we choose to go, the direction we choose to take with it. And we will continue to advocate for our gamers, for our industry, for our students, and the holistic impact that this has on Canadians.
Amazing. I mean, these are wonderful stuff. I mean, government coming in is one thing, but definitely we have to do our best. I like the sleeping giant stuff. Definitely, esports is like a sleeping giant, right? When we wake up, a lot of things will be get done. The social impact is so great, you know, both for students, both for underprivileged communities that can pivot on esports to build better livelihood for the students. I mean, let's go to one of the, I will also call it one of the biggest questions on esports, which is how do we get funding for our esports? Because a lot of, you know, as you rightly said, it's is a new space, right? So sometimes getting sponsorship, but you run an esports organization which is non for profit. How do you raise
Correct.
sponsorship?
You know what? That is still one of the bigger struggles for all the not for profit organizations in this space. I think that when we look at the industry itself, there are lots of opportunities and possibilities, whether it be through, again, those community connections and developing that sense of ownership within games so that people are invested not only with their time but with their money, in terms of, like, when I think about the number of skins that I've bought in League of Legends that do absolutely nothing in terms of improving the way I play, whether I think it does or not. I put on that skin and I promise I play better. But I think that there's a lot of opportunity there for them to really dig into that and different aspects of how that is going to interact with even, I'm not going to get into metaverse stuff, but like, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. But in terms of the not-for-profit space, it's definitely one that still needs to be explored. And I don't think, at least from the folks I've spoken to, that many of us have it really figured out. I think that private sponsorship and corporate sponsorship is part of it. I think that government support is part of it, but it also needs to be a sustainable place. So then looking at what does membership look like and what do we provide our members that would warrant their support in terms of financial application. And so far we haven't gotten into that space with Esport Canada in terms of paid membership or anything like that. So we're very much exploring the other models of sponsorship and funding. But it's definitely one that I personally have not nailed yet. Keyword being yet. We're getting there.
Okay. All right. And next question, a few more questions. Then I will let you. Once we have you here, we need to squeeze every information from you because once you go, it will take us another flight ticket to get to Canada, which is, I'm thinking, is
please come
now.
Anytime. That's true.
Anyway,
wait till the summer.
Yeah. Yes, when I met you, I mean, I'm looking for the possibility of an exchange program where Canadian esports athletes will come down to Africa or Ghana to experience our culture, play with us, and then we also have an exchange program with you. It could be in the university level or the student level, whatever it is, but those are kind of the relationship that I almost all the time want to build with people like you. And because for me, esports is not just sitting behind a computer and playing video games. It's also cultural exchange. I need to the talents and the players and the gamers in Canada are different from that in Africa. But the thing that we share together is the gameplay, right? And once we come together and we are playing, we are all the same. We share that passion. We understand each other within a game. But another thing that we could share is our culture, our music, our sounds and sights, right?
Food.
Our tourism spaces, our food, right? Yes, let them come experience African food. Why can't we also come over to come and experience? I said esports is a ticket. It's like a global citizen passport, right? It's our number one global citizen passport. It connects a lot more people than any other thing in the world. I'm telling you, bigger than Facebook, because it is that tool that once we are playing, we are on the same level. We understand the game's rule. When we playing FIFA or everybody, the rules doesn't change because you are a Canadian.
Yeah, well, and the thing that I think separates esports from traditional sports, even in that, because we do get that experience of global connectedness through things like the Olympics, is that with esports, you don't have to wait every 4 years to have a 2-week experience of connectedness. It's every day. It's building those connections and those relationships that draw us together based on similarities rather than focusing on differences that we can experience every single day and not just for 2 weeks every 4 years. And I think that is something that really needs to be accounted for and really celebrated.
Quick one. I want to talk about money. How do we monetize? Or how do we monetize? Let me go back and let me get the question right. How do you think gaming and esports industry can better monetize and grow its revenue through live streams?
You know what? I think that's a question for Esports Insider because I don't think they have it figured out yet either. Everybody's asking that question. I don't have the answer any more than they do. Everybody's got
Anyway,
ideas, but an answer, an actual solution, I don't think anybody's really got that figured out yet, but we're working on it.
yeah, yeah, I do understand. I mean, we've almost getting to the tail end of the show, and thank you so much, even being on the show. And I could see Baba on the stream. I could see Nana Prempe on the stream. Shout out to you all. Thank you for. Baba say, "Hey, Malisa."
Hey,
But that is
Baba!
yes, Baba from Senegal. Thank you, Baba, for staying up and watching. I think I can see Nana prepares such a great insight. Thank you, Nana, for really digging the stock. Yes, thank you, Nana Prempe, for also joining the stream. And then we've almost coming to the tail end of the show. It's been great having Malisa on, but I'll have a few more questions because I know I need to ask these questions before we go. Um, so, Malisa, two more questions. I promise you, this is the
Okay.
last two, and I will leave you to
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Okay, so two brief questions. Okay, the first question is, how do you think gaming and esports can address the issue of online harassment and toxic behavior?
Oh man, you didn't tell me these are going to be long questions. uh, uh,
It's either the easy one, when you're playing a video game, you move from the you move from level one, then you go to level two, then level three. This is
yeah,
act- this is
totally.
the boss fight question.
Yeah, absolutely. So for that one, I think that, and I think it ties into so many of the other questions that you asked earlier as well. Because even when we look at like gender equity in terms of games, we're not seeing very many women playing at high levels as men. And there's no real physical reason why we shouldn't be. And so then we have to ask ourselves, if women can play esports at the same highest level of competition as men and they aren't, why aren't they? What is the barrier? What is getting in their way? And I think that the environment is a really big factor in that. And so when even thinking to my own friends who play, I have one friend in particular who plays Call of Duty at a very competitive level. And if she is not using a voice modulator when she's on comms, her game experience is incredibly different. Not only is she dealing with a lot of toxic masculinity in terms of the comments that she's receiving, but she also doesn't get the same opportunities in games because there are assumptions made about her skill level when she's playing. And so when we look at that piece of how can we use these words to start to change the landscape of toxic environments online, whether it's directed towards any particular gender or anything else, I think we have to start having conversations in those education spaces. And this is the reason, while many people use it as a reason to keep esports away from school because it's toxic, my argument is that that is exactly the reason we need to bring it into schools, because we need to have that safe place to fail. So I've noticed even with my own students, listening to them respond to different things, sometimes the vocabulary that is used, they don't even recognize it as being problematic. And they don't realize, they can't even identify in themselves that they are contributing to a toxic environment. So we need to actually start by bringing it into schools, letting them fail, and then reframing how the conversation ends and giving them the skills to self-regulate in that space. Because a lot of times we get hyped up, we get amped up in that space, and we don't know how to regulate ourselves to make it a productive experience for yourself and for everybody else around you. And so I think that is really going to be key.
Amazing. I said one last question. I'm actually torn between two questions, but anyway, I'll ask the I'll ask the last question. The last question is,
Okay.
you've been into IESF International. How do you think international tournaments such as global championships help in developing talent?
I think that it is so exciting for them. I know that even for the Tekken player that we had brought from Canada, he had won our national qualifiers. We brought him to Worlds. He did quite well. He finished 13th overall, but watching how he responded to that opportunity and how he, on the flight home, was talking about all the things that he was going to do to improve and what he would change and what he would work on to have the opportunity to do that again was really incredible and moving for him. But it also has a ripple effect, because when those athletes come home, it's not impacting just them. Just like even the experience for me as a delegate to go didn't impact just me. It brings ideas, inspiration back with us that impact our families, our friends, our communities, and the gaming community in general, because it gives you this new surge of energy that carries you through and gives you that impetus to keep going and keep pushing. That brings a level of excellence that wasn't previously there across the entire board.
Amazing. Thank you. I was gonna say thank you, Prof. Melissa, because today's insight has been very academic and professional in your delivery. So we want to give you Prof. Melissa for for availing yourself. We thank you so much. I know this episode has been one that has come to us, enriching everybody in within Africa. We live in this contest online, and we're hoping that people will come back to it and to really have a goal at it. Listen to it again and again. Every question that we ask there in reflective to the African struggle, or our African esports space, meaning that she has gone through a lot, and she has shared how she introduced it into her school. She spoke about girls. She spoke about dealing with toxicity and all that, and we believe that a lot has been shared. So for our viewers watching, come back to this, come and watch it again and again. To those that are watching, share it to those who couldn't come in to watch, and I believe that they will have a wonderful time watching this again and again. Thank you, Melissa, for availing yourself, for coming in to share. I am truly, truly, truly grateful.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Yes, I really want you to come to Ghana when you have the time.
That'd be great.
Yes, whenever you think of visiting Africa, please think about Ghana. You will love it. You will love it. We have everything that is in Canada. Everything, the food, everything. But most importantly, you will love the culture and the weather. I'm telling you. You will love it. You will love it.
I can't wait.
Anyway, guys, so thank you for being on this episode, and I'm grateful for you staying up till this time to make sure I take your investment in time and data to watch this episode for granted. And I appreciate you all for supporting this particular program. And until next, we bring you another great individual within the esports space. It's me. My name is Chris Hereford, and I've been your host, together with Dr. Prof. Melissa Barnes, Chair and Founder of Esports Canada. So until next time again, bye, Melissa. Bye.
Bye.
Ha 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 ha.